Catherine, the Princess of Wales, has class, Meghan Markle, the fake Duchess, has vulgarity. And nothing proved that more than two highly contrasting trips over the past week. And what is so despicable in this moment is that Meghan continues to try and cosplay Catherine. Now, we've rumbled it, we see it, but it shows that she is obsessed with this woman who she still views as her biggest rival in the world. As Meghan's mole pointed out in regards to the two pictures you just saw, the Princess of Wales was awarded the Primo Tricolore, the highest civic honour of the city of Reggio Emilia in Italy. This prestigious award was presented by Mayor Marco Massari in recognition of her international advocacy for early childhood development and education through the Royal Foundation. In her obsessed mission to one-up Catherine, Meghan received a dingy vest from the World Health Organization. Now, according to Taz, who will be here very shortly, pointed out, this is just embarrassing at this point. But it wasn't the only moment. Look at this. Catherine, the Princess of Wales, attending a reception at Buckingham Palace on April 21st, 2026. Literally when Meghan was planning her outfit, okay? To honour the 100th anniversary of the birth of the late Queen Elizabeth II. Meghan Markle clearly copying Catherine for her upcoming disaster in Switzerland. So she's obsessed. She is obsessed. She looks at what Catherine does, and rather than thinking Catherine's popularity comes down to the fact that she has authenticity, that she connects with people genuinely, and actually she's not looking for attention, rather Meghan thinks, I can do that, but I'm going to do it better than her. And then she falls flat on her face. There is a weird sort of psychopathic nature, I believe, to Meghan's obsession with Catherine. And I mean, it really didn't work, did it? If you saw the scenes of Catherine, the Princess of Wales in Italy, which were just completely remarkable. I mean, look at this moment, totally unprompted. Literally thousands and thousands of people had turned up in the square to see her, and she just naturally runs over. Compare and contrast that to Meghan in Geneva, where she thought that she would receive this type of welcome, where she prepared to cosplay Catherine, but she simply couldn't because there were only 10 people in the audience. There they were, the 10 people that turned up. And Meghan Markle also thought that she could in some way hijack Catherine's visit with the most bizarre new promo for Was Never I Have Seen. She posted what began with fruit from Meghan's garden, simmered into preserves in her home kitchen, and has inspired our curated collections to bring surprise and delight to your everyday. But then she posted what can only be described, and let's take a look at it, a creepily seductive new promo video, which again has the completely opposite to the desired effect. Meghan looks like a brazen hussy. She doesn't look like someone who you want to emulate. And as Hans pointed out, there's a difference between a performative approach to children's online safety and solution-focused work. Meghan's Geneva speech focuses on a problem, while Princess Catherine's recent trip to Italy was to learn ways to improve early childhood learning. The crowd turnout speaks volumes. And I think sometimes you just have to go and look at how the locals embrace the particular royal. I mean, on Italian TV, there was true joy about Catherine being there.
A glamorous international trip, carefully planned appearances, and headlines designed to command attention. But instead of praise, Meghan Markle is facing a new wave of criticism. Because according to royal commentators, what was meant to be a high-profile success has sparked accusations of something far more controversial. An alleged attempt to compete with a woman many believe now represents the future of the monarchy, Catherine, Princess of Wales. And if the growing backlash is any indication, the strategy may have produced the exact opposite result. Ever since leaving royal duties with Prince Harry, Meghan Markle has faced a challenge unlike any other former royal. How do you remain globally relevant after stepping away from one of the most famous institutions in the world? It's a question that has followed the Sussexes for years. And it's a question that has shaped nearly every major project, appearance, interview, and public initiative they've launched since moving to California. Because whether supporters like it or not, and whether critics admit it or not, Harry and Meghan remain connected to the royal story, even after leaving it behind. The latest controversy centers around Meghan's recent international appearance and the media campaign that surrounded it. Supporters described the trip as a success. They highlighted the attention it received, the photographs, the headlines, the public engagement, and the visibility it generated for Meghan and Harry's broader projects. But critics quickly saw something different. Almost immediately, comparisons began appearing across social media, royal commentary channels, and newspaper opinion pieces. Comparisons not to celebrities, not to politicians, but to Catherine. And that comparison changed everything.
And the thing is, there is something very genuine about what Catherine is attempting to do. In her fashion, in her approach, and she refuses to give in to PR expectations. She refuses to give in to what's trending. And that's why I believe she is becoming such an effective royal. And Roy Anika, the Sunday Times royal editor, very connected within the royal rota, who travelled to Italy with Catherine, by the way, she didn't travel to Geneva with Meghan, says that she is just refusing to give in to the folk who say she needs to be like Princess Diana. Let me take you through her argument. Why, some ask, doesn't this Princess of Wales pick up the mantle of the most famous woman in the world to have held the title? Why isn't Kate a bit edgier, a bit more like Diana, who campaigned to raise awareness of HIV and AIDS? To pose those questions is to fundamentally misunderstand this princess, who has never been and doesn't want to be edgy. Kate wants to be authentic. She wants to pursue what she really cares about. And boy, does she care about giving children the best chance in life in their first 5 years. Over 2 days in Italy, she listened intently to teachers, children, practitioners, and scientists, and spoke passionately about her eagerness to learn more and spread the word. I joined her for a long afternoon of learning at the Loris Magaluzzi Centre, a hub for the Reggio Emilia approach. I'll admit that as Kate rolled up her sleeves and got stuck into a clay workshop, I may have briefly glanced at my watch. But as she left the centre more than an hour and a half later, she told her hosts, "I wish I could stay longer." Now let's compare and contrast that to the only reporter who actually went with Meghan Markle on the ground to Geneva, Tom Sykes of the Royalist Substack. And he was brutal in his analysis of the success of the visit, writing that Meghan's Geneva pitch was an audition for a political role no electorate would ever give her. He explained, for the past several months, students of this couple have been watching a rather striking shift in the way Harry and Meghan present themselves to the world. Harry has been gliding with increasing confidence, which many suspect has been tacitly endorsed by his dad, into politics. The op-ed and the New Statesman and the speech in Ukraine are exhibit A and B here, given that the substance of both were echoed a few days later by the actions of his father, prompting Team Harry to brief reporters that the two men are aligned. Meghan in Geneva is the parallel manoeuvre. After several years of focusing on her increasingly leaden commercial ventures, the Netflix shows that no one watched, the as ever jam and flour sprinkle business, the one-off affiliate fashion arrangement, she seems now to be trying to step into the political space she toyed with in the run-up to the 2020 American election cycle. This is Meghan asking the world to take her seriously again, not as a duchess, not as a brand, but as an advocate. The truth, which the closest photograph makes harder than ever to obscure, is that Harry has comprehensively lost the argument about the children's public exposure inside his own marriage. That is in reference, of course, to that awful picture that Meghan posted of Lily at her feet in the wardrobe. Whatever he believes about social media, and his statement suggests he believes a great deal, his wife runs the brand. The brand runs on the kids, and so the kids stay on Instagram. The Geneva speech is the rhetoric. The closet photograph, is the reality. There is, as the newspapers are reminding us this morning, an active Ebola outbreak in sub-Saharan Africa. These are the things the World Health Organization is built for and the things the World Health Organization is struggling to do. Social media regulation is not one of those things. It is, frankly, a long way outside the WHO's remit. And the speeches felt at times like both speakers were rehearsing the same somewhat thin justification for their being there at all. And Tash, according to Taz, royal YouTube sensation, who's back with me now, I wanted to talk about Catherine in Italy because I was away last week. I was on my cruise for my mum's 70th birthday. But even I, cruising the River Danube, picked up from the world the excitement about Catherine being in Italy, that there was such genuine buzz about this visit, and the crowds were so unexpected, actually. But I do think when you compare and contrast Geneva to Italy, you absolutely see why one Duchess is a success and why the fake is a complete and utter failure. Some people, Tash, even suggesting that Meghan timed the visit purposefully to try and overshadow the gloss of Catherine's trip. But it actually, Tash, had the complete reverse effect, did it not? It made her look so bad because it came just days after Catherine had had such a rapturous welcome.
It's obvious that's what she was trying to do. That's why the announcement that she was going to Geneva came out when Catherine was still on, I think it was her second day when it came out that Meghan would be doing it. But yeah, it was a serious own goal. It really was. And I mean, it was rather fantastic, to be honest with you. But the difference between the two women, I mean, you could go on and on and on, give me a scroll. There are very big differences with the way they even talk about children on social media. Catherine last year, she penned an essay and she was talking about the disconnection, how it's becoming an epidemic with children and adults as well, with spending too much time on social media, on screen time, she said. And the speech never, well, the written speech, the essay never came across like she's preaching at people. She wasn't attacking social media companies. She wasn't attacking parents. She wasn't telling people what they needed to do. She was just saying that we all need to take a breath. We need to get outside. We need to walk away. We need to put our screens and our phones down because it is becoming an epidemic. And I thought it was a really lovely essay, and it was a great way to also talk about the importance of children having less screen time and how it can be damaging for them because of their emotional development. Meghan and Harry have jumped on this, and I don't think it's got anything to do with children's safety. I think a lot of it has got to do with Meghan and Harry pushing for social media companies to be more tightly controlled. I believe that Harry and Meghan are of the mindset of certain organizations out there that, like what we saw with COVID and the pandemic, they do not want us to have access to all of the news. They do not want you to run outspoken Dan. They do not want you to speak to two different sides of an argument and let people have critical thinking. Harry and Meghan want control. And you can see this and the different approaches that they're doing. They talk about they care about children, they're doing it for children, and they are genuinely using parents who have lost their children for a variety of reasons due to social media. But all Harry and Meghan do is preach at people. What suggestions do they ever come up with? At least in Catherine's essay, she's telling people to just remember to spend time together as a family, to go outside, to, go out and touch grass, basically, every so often, have a break. But Harry and Meghan just lecture people, and it's more to do with their anger towards social media companies because they cannot control how much stuff is written about them. And I think that's really what drives them. They only want their propaganda. They only want one side of their story to be put out there. It's about silencing all of their critics. And I think that they are using a subject that is so sensitive, where lots of children are genuinely in danger on the internet. But I don't believe Harry and Meghan really care about that. I think it's totally geared up for their own selfish reasons.
Absolutely. And there was also a reference, Tash, to this totally bonkers column that Harry wrote in the New Statesman. Yeah. I really like this from Amir Koetcher on the piece. He wrote, Prince Harry and Meghan did more to divide our kingdom than almost anyone else in recent years. They weaponized race to smear good people and cause maximum damage to our monarchy, which does more than any institution in the country to bring us all together. It doesn't matter what he has to say on anti-Semitism, Islamophobia, societal divisions, or on anything else to do with our country for that matter. And I saw that, Tash, and I thought, amen. You know, sometimes you see a post and you're like, that is exactly how I feel, but you have summed it up so brilliantly. How dare you come in now and try to say, having left the country, having trashed us, having said that people who voted for Brexit, which, by the way, was over 50% of the people who voted in that referendum were racist, having slammed the work of the late Queen Elizabeth II in terms of the Commonwealth, which is actually a great project to take away racism, to end that type of division. How dare you come in now from your mansion in California and try to lecture us? I found it sickening.
I saw that tweet as well, and I was like you, I thought it was absolutely brilliant. But yeah, Harry and Meghan race baited. They did Oprah at a time when the world was still very sensitive, reeling from George Floyd, from BLM, and they knew exactly what they were doing when they did that interview with Oprah. And they know that they were lying. The world knows that they were lying, because I watched a clip of it not that long ago just to remind myself, and it was them talking about how Archie was not going to get titles. They were going to change the rules because he was biracial, because Archie wasn't going to get security because he was biracial. They used race to try and smear the royal family. They are two of the biggest race baiters. They collected an award, didn't they? The Kennedy Award for fighting racism inside the royal family. And then Harry, a few years later, near enough caused Tom Bradby's brain to melt down. If you remember that, you saw his face. He was struggling to compute as Harry said, "I've never called my family racist." Yes, you did. That's actually your allegations of racism towards the royal family and the staff and everybody in the UK that was awful to you is what got most of the damaging headlines out there. It was that accusation about their unborn baby. Members of the royal family were racist towards them. So, yeah, I completely agree with him. There are certain things that Harry and Meghan have absolutely no rights to speak on. And to be honest with you, anything to do with this country, I got irritated when Harry did his last little essay, no doubt written by ChatGPT as well, where he was talking about remembrance and how we should honour veterans in this country, given the fact that he went against all of his oaths. He was a traitor to Queen, to King, to future King, and country. So there are certain conversations Harry needs to sit down and shh.
100%. I mean, my response, Tash, was maybe not quite as articulate. I posted on my Instagram. I was so mad. I was so mad. I even swore. I said, Prince Harry will not allow his wife or kids to even travel to the UK because of security. Yet the despised royal is now directly campaigning against Unite the Kingdom patriots who are worried about their daughters being gang raped or their partners being blown up. F off. Honestly, F off. Seriously.
Yeah, and that's what it was boiling down to. It was all to do with that Unite the UK march. That's why this came out when it did.
100%.
And you know exactly, Harry and Meghan are being pushed. They're stooges. They are stooges. They are political stooges. They are getting involved with organizations and people that are pushing a certain agenda. And then again, this is another reason why you cannot listen and people are not listening to anything that Harry and Meghan have to say. It doesn't matter whether she's giving a speech in Geneva on child safety online, or whether she's trying to flog tickets at a women's Australian retreat, and the same as the speech that Harry was due to give out there. They couldn't even fill seats. They were such small venues, such small places. And it's now got to the point where it is just completely embarrassing. But I'm personally here for it. I'm up for them. Keep on doing it, because I tell you what, it gives me something to truly giggle about. Harry and Meghan make me so angry with certain things that they've done, but this I enjoy. I genuinely do enjoy, because it's like watching karma happen in real time.
Well, Tash, I don't know about you, but I also felt that about Peter Phillips' wedding to Harriet, and the news that Harry and Meghan have both been snubbed from the guest list, even though the princesses Beatrice and Eugenie have been invited. And again, to me, Tash, this was karmic, because it's like all of the claims from Harry's side, oh, they've just lost touch. That's absolute rubbish. It's like, no, there was a very clear split in the family after you trashed the family. They
Yeah.
turned on you. You didn't lose touch. The young royals sided with Prince William and Catherine. And the fact is, you were incredibly close to your cousin. And the fact that he is now not inviting you to his wedding. Remember, he attended with Chelsea Davy the wedding to his first wife, Autumn Phillips, is highly significant.
Peter Phillips was the Queen and Prince Philip's eldest grandchild. He had the longest amount of time with his grandmother. That was his grandmother and his grandfather as well. And he had to play buffer between William and Harry at Prince Philip's funeral after Oprah. Now, I believe personally he did that more for Prince William's sake. I don't think he did it for Harry's sake. And I'd imagine that he probably wanted to give Harry a smack upside the head as well. But then when I think of the Queen's Jubilee, it was Peter and Autumn's daughters that were by the window watching the Horse Guard parade below. And Meghan and Harry deliberately went over to the window and they used the children to get their photographs. If you remember, Meghan was shushing them and playing with them. She was using their children to get herself photographed, because they weren't invited to be publicly, their photographs to be taken with the rest of the royals. They were meant to be in the back with the other adults, and they used the kids. Harry and Meghan are disliked by that family, not because of one incident. They are disliked by that family because of lots of incidents, because of lots of tell-alls, lots of interviews, and most importantly, because of what they did to Queen Elizabeth and to Prince Philip in their final months on this earth. And let's not forget that Meghan was still threatening Queen Elizabeth a couple of weeks, that thinly veiled threat in the Cut magazine, if you remember, and that was weeks before she died. So yeah, I'm not surprised that they do not want those two anywhere near one of their happiest days of their lives. Would you? I certainly wouldn't want them anywhere near.
Absolutely not. And we remember, don't we, Tash, what they did at one of the princesses' wedding, revealed the fact that they were expecting, so totally overshadowed.
Weeks pregnant. No one would have known, but they decided to do it then and there. Of course she did.
Exactly. So it's not even like the other type of people that you really want at a wedding. But it's not that that's what this is about, though. It's a message from the family. You are not welcome. We side with William and Catherine. It's clear.
And princesses, Eugenie and Beatrice, are close with their cousins, regardless of the turmoil that's obviously going on with the fallout with Andrew and Fergie and whether they have been involved and haven't been involved. They're incredibly close with Zara. They're incredibly close with Peter Phillips. You often see them going to Monaco and the Grand Prix together. That family is incredibly close, So, yeah. I mean, for them to turn around and say, oh, well, Princesses Beatrice and Eugenie are trying to go. You've seen the media try and spin it. And it's this storyline again. And I'm so sick of this narrative of poor Harry and Meghan. They've been cruelly maligned. They've been ostracized. The poor little things have done nothing wrong. They've done a hell of a lot wrong, to be fair. And the fact that they've still got those titles, I think the family are still going fairly easy on them. I know it's not the easiest thing to strip that involves Parliament, but they have really, really taken the piss out of that family, out of Queen Elizabeth, out of the generosity of the royal family. And they still try and cash in on every opportunity that they can to make any royal trip, any royal event, even personal, such as this. I'm pretty certain it's probably Harry and Meghan's camp that are also pushing these stories. Oh, Harry and Meghan have been rejected yet again. They're the ones that are being, pushed away. It's like, well, you're not being pushed away. You quit, you left, and then you decided to try and burn everything to the ground. So I guess they're learning that all of those bridges have officially been burnt.
4 years, Catherine and Meghan have been linked in the public imagination. 2 women, 2 royal marriages. 2 dramatically different paths. One remained inside the institution. One chose to leave. And because of that history, nearly every major development involving one woman inevitably sparks discussion about the other. It's a comparison neither woman can fully escape. Yet critics argue that recent public appearances have only intensified those comparisons. Some claim Meghan's branding increasingly overlaps with themes traditionally associated with senior royal figures. Public service, global influence, high-profile humanitarian engagement, and carefully curated public imagery. Others reject that interpretation completely. They argue Meghan is simply building her own identity and pursuing causes she believes in. But once the comparison starts, it becomes difficult to stop. And that's where this story takes an unexpected turn. Because the backlash wasn't driven by what Meghan did. It was driven by how audiences reacted. Instead of focusing solely on Meghan's trip, many discussions online shifted toward Catherine. People compared photographs, compared media coverage, compared popularity, compared public perception. And according to some royal analysts, that outcome may have undermined the very attention Meghan hoped to generate. Because rather than creating a standalone moment, the event reignited the ongoing debate surrounding the two women, a debate that has followed them for years. And in the eyes of critics, that comparison rarely benefits Meghan. Not because of anything she specifically does, but because Catherine's role within the monarchy gives her a unique position that cannot easily be replicated outside the institution. What's fascinating about this controversy is that it reveals a much larger issue facing Harry and Meghan. Visibility versus legitimacy. The Sussexes have visibility. Massive visibility. Global recognition. Media coverage. Public interest. But the monarchy possesses something different. Institutional legitimacy. History. Tradition. Continuity. And for many royal supporters, Catherine has become the embodiment of those values. Calm under pressure. Measured in public. Consistent over time. Which means every comparison between Meghan and Catherine tends to become a comparison between two entirely different worlds. Celebrity influence versus royal duty. Personal branding versus institutional responsibility. Modern independence versus traditional continuity. Meanwhile, public reaction remains deeply divided. Supporters of Meghan argue she is judged unfairly and constantly measured against impossible standards. They point out that virtually everything she does becomes a controversy. Every speech, every interview, every photograph, every appearance. Critics see things differently. They argue that many controversies emerge because Meghan continues seeking public relevance while simultaneously distancing herself from royal obligations. And that's where much of the frustration originates. The perception that the benefits of royal association remain useful, while the responsibilities are left behind. Whether that perception is fair or not, it continues shaping public discussion. What makes this moment particularly significant is timing. At a point when Catherine continues receiving widespread sympathy and support from the public, any attempt, real or perceived, to compete for attention becomes extraordinarily risky. Because public sentiment matters. And once audiences decide a story is about rivalry, every detail gets interpreted through that lens, even when that may not have been the original intention. And the real question now is, was Meghan simply pursuing her own independent path? Or has the comparison with Catherine become so unavoidable that every major appearance automatically turns into a contest? At its core, this controversy isn't really about one trip. It's about perception. It's about identity. And it's about two women whose stories became permanently linked the moment Meghan entered the royal family. One now represents the future queen. The other represents life beyond the monarchy. And for millions of royal watchers around the world, that contrast remains impossible to ignore. Which is why every headline, every appearance, and every public moment continues generating intense debate. Not just about Meghan, not just about Catherine, but about what the modern royal story has become. If you enjoy royal news, palace drama, and behind-the-scenes analysis of the biggest royal controversies, make sure you subscribe and turn on notifications. Because the battle for public perception inside and outside the monarchy is far from over. And the next royal headline may be even more explosive than the last.